Hi everyone, I'm here today interviewing Miss Carrie on her career in education. Would you like to introduce yourself and the roles you hold currently?
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Carrie Pierce. I'm currently a teacher at Lindale High School. I teach foundations of college math and geometry and drill team, and I also own a dance studio.
Okay, did you always know that you wanted to be in education?
Yes, I would say that from the time I was little, I always knew I wanted to work with children in some way, be in education in some way. I always I know this sounds crazy, but I always played school, and I just saw myself in that role. But I really didn't know what I wanted to teach until I was in 7th grade, and I had a math teacher named Miss Black who made math a lot of fun, and I always just wanted to be like her. So that's how I knew I wanted to be a math teacher someday.
What would you say the most rewarding part about your job is?
Well, I guess the relationships that you have with students is probably the most rewarding job. Every student you meet makes an impression on your life, and hopefully you make an impression on theirs as well. And I think that's just even on days where you're not teaching them a whole lot of math, sometimes you can teach them things that will have impact on their life beyond math or beyond drill team or beyond dance class. So it just that's probably the most rewarding.
What is the biggest challenge you face day to day as an educator?
I think that the biggest challenge. In those relationships, sometimes you deal with kids who are going through things that are hard that you don't really like. It's not something you deal with on a daily basis, and so sometimes that can be challenging. Working through those things, but probably honestly the mundaneness of paperwork and things like that aren't as rewarding but have to be done. That's probably day to day my biggest challenge.
Do you feel supported by your community?
Oh yeah, definitely feel supported by my community. And I don't think that's the case for teachers everywhere, but I think that in my case, I do. I'm lucky to live in a town where I feel like educators are supported, and I feel like not only is there appreciation, but there's quite a bit of support for us. I'm answering the question with a question, but the support goes outside of just being oh, we support you. It's they really back you up. Now, of course, you're going to run into instances where that doesn't happen, but for the majority of the time, I think I'm very supported.
What are some benefits that you have that were unexpected being an educator?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. Well, I travel a lot with the drill team, and I didn't expect that. And that's kind of like a little perk. You get to travel. I love to travel, and so I get to go on trips with them. And I honestly like to organize travel as well, and so I get to do that and still get to go and see cool places like New York, and this year we're going to Chicago. So that's something I never thought about that I would be able to do as an educator.
Would you encourage young adults to pursue?
Okay, so this is a tricky question. All right, as far as how much I love my job and how rewarding my job is, I 100% would support or would try to talk someone into being a teacher for sure. Now, there is the pay aspect of being a teacher. Teachers it's not very financially lucrative, but that's not everything. And if I had it to choose over again, I would choose being an educator again. Now, I do feel like the world is changing some, and if it keeps going in the direction that it has been going, that I feel like that support that we talked about earlier would not be as much, even in a great community, and so that would make it harder to choose teaching. But then I think about my own children. I've always their whole life said, oh, you don't want to be a teacher because they don't make enough money. But now one of my daughters is getting a degree in dance education, so she probably will be an educator, and another one of my daughters who is choosing a different path. I think in my heart, I think sometimes that education would be the job for her because I just know how she is. So that's a hard question. It's both. It depends on what's more important to you in life. Is it more important to you to be financially, and not that I'm not financially stable, but is it more financially successful, or is it more important for you to have a happy life where you feel like you're never going to work? I just got off a week and I'm fixing to go back to work tomorrow. I'm not even dreading it because I really love my job.
So you mentioned earlier having a teacher in 7th grade who really pushed you to choose this path. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate more on that story?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Okay, so her name was Miss Black. She was my 7th grade math teacher, and I always liked math, but she explained it in a way that made it make sense not only to me but to other kids in the class, and I thought that was cool. I liked the way she taught. because I didn't understand how people didn't understand math, but when she taught it, she taught in a way that made it people where people understood it. And I thought that was such a neat gift she was giving those kids, because I always thought math was so cool. I know, I'm a nerd. And then also she did things called Fabulous Fridays, where we got to play math games, and I was really good at them, so that made me like want to do them every Friday. But then that made it more fun too, and it made me think in math terms. And so that, for some reason, that just triggered me. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Do you plan, obviously, you've been in this field for some time, so like, do you plan to do anything else after teaching?
That's a great question too. I just recently got my master's degree because I thought that I wanted to do something besides be in the classroom. And so I got my master's in educational leadership and thought, okay, I want to move on and be like a principal, or move on and be like this. And I still haven't, because I don't think that I would enjoy that as much as I enjoy being in the classroom. And even though I've only taught in public schools for like 17 years now, but before that I taught dance. So I've been in some aspect of teaching ever since I was 16 or 17 years old. So I can't picture myself not having that classroom outlet. So yeah, I probably will do this until I retire. And then who knows what I'll do from there, but I'll do something.
Do you think that it is becoming more challenging to be effective in your role as a teacher?
Oh, okay. Effective in my role as a teacher of math? Yes. I think that there's, kids are a lot more apathetic now about learning. They don't see the importance in it, and they don't do it just because they're told to do it. Like, for a long number of years, we just did things because our parents told us that's what we were supposed to do. And so there's a lot of more questioning of authority now. And so when that comes into play, the kids question, how is this math important? How is it going to help me in life? How is it going to, how am I going to, how is this going to benefit my life in the long run? So as far as being a math teacher, yes, I feel like that's more challenging. But as far as being a teacher in the other ways I talked about how I can influence kids, no, I do not think it's more effective. I think kids need that positive influence and that authoritative influence even more now than they ever have. So I think in that aspect, no, it's not more challenging.
If you weren't a teacher, what could you see yourself doing for a living?
Oh, okay. This is going to sound crazy, but I could see I love, like I talked about on trips, I love the organization of those trips. And I love organizing shows for drill team and for dance. So I could see myself, and this sounds crazy because I can't decorate or do anything like that, but like being an event planner, like planning like corporations events, or like planning like that's probably kind of like education too. But like when you go to a conference and they have all the different rooms or learning different things, and like I could see myself organizing all that and making sure it's all effectively ran. So that's what I could see myself doing.
How challenging was it to be an educator during COVID?
Oh, it's terrible. It was absolutely terrible. That was the worst time to be an educator or be anything, honestly. I'm going to talk about this on two fronts. As a classroom teacher, it took away all the part that I enjoy about teaching and just left the parts I didn't like as much. So, I mean, like, I love math, and I love getting that subject matter out to kids and helping kids who don't understand math. But you can't do that from your computer at home. You can't make those connections with those kids, and you can't make that effective. So that was terrible. And then there was the lack of accountability, because it was kind of like we were thrown into it, and kids got to do work or not do work, whatever. It wasn't, there was no accountability, there was no structure, there wasn't any, connections with these kids. I hated it. I hated every minute of it. I did not enjoy it. And then, and this is kind of off the education front, but as a dance studio owner, it was absolutely terrible, because how do you teach kids how to dance when you're at home? I mean, we had ballet bars here in our living room, and we were doing Zoom classes, and we were doing all the things, but it was absolutely awful. It was the worst time in my entire career.
And were there things that, like, how has it affected you since then? Because obviously.
Okay. Yeah. Well. So I think that I'm gonna do that again from the education dance and from the dance studio aspect. From the education aspect, I think that there were holes that kids. I know it was only March through May, which doesn't seem like a big education. Like we usually pretty much have finished our curriculum by end of March, beginning of April, and then we're just reviewing. But there are holes in those kids. Well, I can tell, like my last year's geometry kids, no, 2 years ago, my geometry kids really struggled because they missed 8th grade, which is where they get a lot of foundation of geometry. And so they struggled more in geometry. Now, last year, my kids in SCM struggled more because they were Algebra 1 kids, or 3 years ago, I can't remember. But anyway, 1 year ago, they were my Algebra 1 kids that missed Algebra 1. And that made it hard for them because they missed that part. So I can see that on both. I mean, I'm seeing it in all different kinds of classes. And I'm sure every single teacher is seeing that in different ways. As far as the dance studio goes, I think that since 2020, the economy has kind of kaputted out. And so I think that with taking that away and making things more accessible at home, I think that's taken away some of the importance of having that dance education being a priority. So
You talked about how the monetary compensation
yes.
of being a teacher is low. So you obviously own a dance studio. What other things do you do?
Well, I do a lot. I own a dance studio. I do not, however, take a lot of money from my dance studio because I'm putting back into the business. I'm trying to pay off the building, and I have several women who work for me. I don't really work there a lot. I used to teach a few classes, but this year I'm not even teaching any classes. So I don't do a lot. I don't make a lot of money off that. My husband also owns a DJ business, and so I help him out with his DJ business, and I do that quite often. So I know for sure that it would be now we could make it on my teacher salary. Well, my husband works at the Fourth Street, but on that, but it would be much more challenging. I couldn't do all the things in life I want to do. I couldn't travel like I want to travel. Christmas would be more challenging. Since I have been a teacher, I have always done another job of some sort. And not everybody does. Like some people, in their family unit, they may be able to financially handle that. But I don't know I don't know one person who's a single teacher who teaches and has kids who can support themselves on a teacher salary. I mean, like I said, it could be done, but it would be very, very challenging. So I think that speaks to where we put our priorities. And if we're putting our priorities with teachers being able to be self-sufficient on a teacher salary, it would be hard, especially a new teacher. I mean, $47,000, I think is that's what I think our school pays it for sure, but I think the state minimum is even below that, and that's just not a lot of money. It's not. So.
What impact do you wish to have on this next generation of students?
Okay, so I love the Maya Angelou quote that says something along the lines of, I'm not going to quote her exactly because I'll get it wrong, but people will never forget, they'll forget what you say to them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so I think I'm a pretty strict teacher, but I think there's a level of respect there that I want my kids to leave knowing that even though I was hard on them and I had certain expectations and I expected them to uphold those expectations, that I still cared about them as a person, as an individual. And so I think that's the main thing. I want them to leave my classroom with a sense of first of all, having more self-confidence about what they can accomplish, like as far as even math goes or anything they're learning from me. But then I think really just as a person, like knowing what level of respect they should expect and having goals for themselves that they can accomplish, even if it's outside of what they feel like they can accomplish.
What words of wisdom would you like to share?
Oh gosh, I don't have lots of words of wisdom, but okay, so words of wisdom. I think my words of wisdom are going to go back to what I talked about earlier about whether I would tell someone to be in education. I am telling you that there is not a week, barely a day, but there is not a week that goes by that I don't have something happen in my life as an educator that brings me joy. And so if you're in a job that doesn't bring you joy, that money doesn't equate to that. So you can make a gajillion dollars a year, but if you don't have that joy every day of your life, then is it worth it? Is it worth it? So I think that's my words of wisdom.
Okay. I know you're not supposed to have a favorite student, but out of all your years of teaching, do you have just one student that stands out to you?
Well, I've taught both my daughters now, so I have to say they're my favorites. But I don't think I really honestly, and they're my favorites because they're my children, so that doesn't count. But I don't think that there is honestly a single student that I would say that's my favorite student I've ever taught. there are students that are so very memorable. There's one girl, her name is Kayla, and when I first started teaching, I taught just dance class, and she was like a hard case. Like she was like kind of tough. She was raised by her father, and she was kind of tough around the edges, and I just thought, she's who influenced me to go from just teaching a couple hours of dance every other day to teaching full-time math. Because she was not a dance studio kid. She was just a regular kid. And I'm still friends with her, and I talked to her, and she knows the story, and I've told her this. But like, she influenced me to teach regular kids. And I think so that was such an impact on my life, because I thought, I want to teach more kids like her. And I'm just like, I'm so proud of her. She's so successful. She went to dental hygiene school. She's got a beautiful family. She's got 2 little girls. I'm just so very proud of her. And she probably doesn't know that I feel that way about her. So like, the impact she made, and that was 18 years ago. The impact that she made on my life is huge. So there are memorable students throughout the years, and there's so many of them. She just is one that came to mind when you asked me the question. But she, and it's honestly, she probably came to mind because I'm watching a TV show right now that a girl looks like her, and it always makes me think of her. But every single year, there are multiple people who impact my life that way. And so I think I wouldn't say favorite, I can think of a boy right now who was definitely not my favorite. Like, I couldn't hardly stand him when he was in my class, but he made a big impact on me. He kind of like reformed the way I teach, because I was too lenient on him. And so I gave him an inch and he took a mile, and it took a long time to get that mile back. So he reformed the way I teach. And I would never have said he was a favorite, but he was very impactful. So I think that I can't say there's a favorite for sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm here with Miss Lindsay. I'm interviewing her on her career in education. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Lindsay Kelly. I've been an educator for 9 years, starting my 10th year. I also coach girls golf and do a lot of other things at the school, such as graphic design projects, project management of graphic design, and am the FCA sponsor.
Okay. So my first question, did you always know that you wanted to be an educator?
No, I actually did not come into education until I was 30. So there were a lot of times in younger years when I worked with kids and people would tell me, you're really good with kids. And I was like, no, I am not interested in being a teacher. So yeah, I didn't know at all.
What was your original degree plan and other jobs you've had?
It was public relations, journalism, and yes, shout out, and minor in communication. And so the reason I went that path was because in high school I took media technology class, and I was the one who did the morning announcements every day. We actually had video cameras in our media tech class, and we would record the announcements during second period, and then we would play them during third period. So we had all of second, and we were double blocked. So we had the first part of second period to record them, the second part of second period to edit, and then they played on all of our TVs in our classrooms during third period. And so through that, I was just like, I love the lights, the camera, writing, editing video. I love all that. And so that's what pushed me into journalism. Well, actually, I started out in broadcast and loved it, but all of the things that we had to do, like on the weekends and stuff, made me realize I didn't really want to do broadcast, because I didn't want to do weekends. I wanted to have a family. And so that's why I switched to PR, because I could still use those skills, but still have a normal 9-to-5 type career and have a family too. So after graduating with that degree, I started working for a church using those skills and using my degree. I maintained the website. Well, before that, I interned at a marketing department for a hospital. So that was really cool to see how they used, Photoshop and Illustrator every day to create ads and graphics, but it was just all related to hospitals. So then after that, took the job for the church, and it was like a 1,000-member church, so it was really big. Created logos and ads for any events we were having, put on every single ladies event that we hosted. I was the one who would run it and, get everybody prepared for it. I did all the communication for the church and website and social media.
Okay. What do you find most rewarding about your career?
For education, the most rewarding thing is the relationships with students, because you are not just doing a job every day that gets, done. You're actually mentoring, guiding, correcting, teaching. You're coming alongside people and trying to help them figure out what they want to do with life, and then also help them, make good decisions. And a lot of kids, especially in public education, kids like you who have a good home life, I just got to come alongside you and cheer you on in what you were already doing and just love you. That was it. And teach you, of course. But so many kids don't have that at home, and they don't have anyone that knows anything about going to college. They don't have anyone that knows anything about how to get a bank account or how to go apply for a job, or they don't have anybody in their corner teaching them all of those things. And so that's what I find is the most rewarding about my job, is just being able to be an adult for kids who need it, who need someone to come alongside them and teach them not only graphic design, but real life skills too.
Okay. And then opposite that, what is the biggest challenge you face?
The biggest challenge is also working with people, and kids are draining, and all of that, like, pouring out of yourself is exhausting. I mean, it's constantly like being needed. I always refer to myself as like I'm a whole pie, and all day long there's like little slices of me getting taken away, and then by the end of the day there's just like nothing left, because I've so like, yay, education. It makes it sound terrible, but it's so true. It's just, that is the reward, and that is the challenge of working with people. Is you're working with people, like I said earlier, you're championing them, you're helping them, but at the same time, that is the most draining thing you can do on earth. And so I also think with high school students, working with parents, is a challenge as well, because they have a lot of opinions and don't always know what's going on. And so they jump to conclusions sometimes that aren't really accurate because they believe what their kid is saying. And so that can kind of be frustrating as well.
You're obviously very involved in the school. Do you feel supported by your community?
Oh, for sure. We have an amazing community that supports us 100%. And, all the community at large and as a whole totally supports their teachers and loves their teachers, and, tries to do things to support us. And, they on social media will post positively. Of course, you have those few people in the community that try to, wreak havoc on the school district, but that is definitely the minority in Lindale.
Have you experienced any unexpected benefits of being an educator?
Unexpected benefits. I'm going to have to dig deep for that one. Unexpected benefits. Well, I think people knowing, I know I'm really having to think, because most of the things that are benefits I kind of expected, which is why I got into teaching in the first place. And going back to that job where when I worked for the church, I worked in youth ministry also, and really enjoyed my time with teenagers, and that's what made me kind of think maybe I do want to look into education. But I think unexpected benefits is just a lot of people know you and respect you, and a lot of people depend on you. And that again feels like a reward that not just students, like people in the community, like so many people will come and ask my opinion on this or that, or ask my advice. They look at me as someone who kind of has an in with teenagers and is a professional and kind of knows, what I'm talking about in regards to how to meet kids where they are and how to teach kids and encourage kids and stuff like that. So I think that's been an unexpected benefit, is, just people looking at me in a way that's so respected.
So you obviously are 9 years in, 10 years in. Do you plan to continue in this field and do anything else in the education field?
Well, as I kind of just year by year, it's like, what am I feeling, after a year? And so my plan is to stay. Of course, when you think about it, when you first get into education, you kind of visualize being in the field for 30 years till you hit your retirement and all that. As life has gone on and, you know, things have changed, sometimes I don't know that I will teach forever, but as of right now, I don't have any plans. I'm not looking for another job. I don't have any plans of leaving education, but I could see getting to that point the older I get. You know, your patience, the older we get, the less patience we have, especially dealing with kids. And so I would never say never, for sure.
Do you feel that it is becoming more challenging to be effective in your role?
I would say overall, yes, for most people. I think I really have it not easy by any means, but being able to teach the content that I teach makes it a lot easier to be effective, because graphic design is such an important role in our community and our society that kids want to know how to do graphic design. And so many opportunities are out there in marketing and design, social media management, all that stuff. And so a lot of that is creating content, and that's exactly what I'm teaching them how to do. So I don't feel like it's very hard, because I think a lot of it is what I teach. And I just think my natural skill set and personalities, I'm definitely cut out to work with kids, because I naturally try to make things fun and engaging and entertaining. And so, but I could see definitely some people struggling with that, because kids, the attention spans are much shorter now. People are so used to just short little pieces of information coming at them quickly on social media that anything longer than 3 minutes, they're checking out of.
During COVID, obviously, graphic design is very specific and not easy to teach online. So how was that for you?
That was pretty terrible. And that's exactly right, because none of the kids had Photoshop at home. And so they didn't have the software available to them. So, but you know, we're teachers, so we improvised and we just found online apps, and I just taught them things with those online apps that are available. Now, honestly, it would be a lot easier, because Canva is a huge tool that a lot of graphic designers use now. And people who aren't graphic designers can use it because it's so user-friendly. It may have been around in 2020, but I didn't know about it. So we used some of Adobe's apps on their iPads. And so they still learned some things, but definitely not the depth of what they would have learned had we been able to meet face to face.
And, okay. If you weren't a teacher right now, or if you never got into education, what do you think you would be doing like right now?
I feel like I would be working in a marketing department at a business somewhere, just doing graphic design or, event planning, public relations, something like that. And that's honestly probably where I will head next if I do get out of education, just because I do enjoy that aspect, or that it feels like a hobby to me. It's fun to design and create and host events and entertain people. That's fun to me. And so I imagine that's what I would be doing.
What impact do you wish to have on the students you're teaching right now?
Just to be a light to them, to be someone that they can look up to, and, know that they can always reach out to me even after they've left my classroom. And I try to tell them that at the end of the year, they're always going to be Kelly kids. You always know how to find me if you need anything. And I think, kind of going back to that question about the reward, that's the best part of teaching, is that, you've taught these kids when they're teenagers, and then several years later, they're inviting you to their weddings and they're wanting you to come to their baby showers. And so you're really getting to build a relationship with people in your community, which is really great.
Okay, so building off that, have you had any students who have left a lasting impact on you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because there's kids who immediately, when you first teach them the basics, they just like take off and soar. And, there's several that I always say, y'all are a better graphic designer than I am now. And so, and then there's kids who maybe weren't the best designers, but I have a student that comes to mind that came from another school district, and he got in trouble for fighting all the time and had bad grades. And when he started going to Lindell, he cared about stuff that he'd never cared about before. And I asked him, because he was checking his grades and he was mad that he had a 95 in something. And I said, isn't that amazing that when you first came to Lindell, you were like barely passing, and now you're mad that you have a 95 instead of 100? And I asked him, what's the difference? And he said, well, when you're surrounded by kids who care about their grades all the time and teachers who care about your grades and want you to do well, it makes it easier to care. And it just, that, I will never forget that story, because it just reminds me that it's so important who kids are surrounded by. It makes a total difference in the path of their life. And so that definitely had an impact.
Okay. Would you encourage young adults to pursue a career in education?
Oh, that's so tricky, because it's here's the deal. If you feel like you are called, or you feel like you've been gifted to work with kids, and you're a good person who loves people, I'm always going to say yes, do it, because the reward is so great as far as that goes. But there's also the side of me, now that I've taught for a while, that is somewhat jaded and somewhat, I've gotten frustrated with the system that exists that we have to teach in, that we don't have any control over. I've gotten frustrated with parents, and, so I've gotten frustrated with the money that we make, or lack thereof. And government's opinion about stuff when they're not even in a classroom, all of that goes along with teaching is why I would tell someone, are you sure you don't want to try another, career path first, and then come back to teaching later if that doesn't work out? That's kind of how I feel, which sounds terrible, because I really do love the interaction with the kids and, the things I said earlier. But at the same time, because I'm in education, I realize how important it is. We need good people who care about kids for our communities at large. So ultimately, yes, if somebody really wanted to do it, I would 100% encourage them. I would give them advice to kind of help them keep those frustrations at bay, and how to navigate being a teacher and not letting that suck you in or pull you down. But yes, I would encourage them to do it.
Okay.
Cautiously encourage them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.